Hey guys, welcome to Melanin United. On this video, we're going to be talking about the Congo. So, I've made a couple of videos about the situation going on in the Congo and that the whole, instability situation that's happening in the Congo, man. Very terrible. Um, like I said, I've made two videos on it. One about how the United Nations are in there and they do not want to leave, no matter, even though the Congolese citizens are telling them to leave, they still don't want to leave. And because like they've been there for 20 about 20 years, and the situation just keeps getting worse and worse. And I've talked about how, yeah, the United Nations is used to steal resources and to distract, so then they can steal resources from other avenue and all their other corrupt stuff, the Europeans. So, and then I also made a video talking about how the East African community, what's it called, led by Kenya and their new president William Ruto, Dr. William Ruto, was saying we got to get the Congo situation figured out, because like if we want to have this East African Federation, East African cooperation together, we need peace, so then we can all cooperate and make an economic jump in growth, right? But yeah, so and they wanted to and they plan to send the East African community forces to the Congo, and then there's pushback by the Europeans, their media, these white media saying, "Well, why is Kenya trying to go interfere in the Congo's politics and all that, interfere in Congo's uh, affairs, right?" But that's because they're there. That's because they don't want no one to go stop the atrocities and the instability going on in the Congo that they created, that they're behind, so then they could keep stealing all the resources. And I've said time and time again, and we should all know this, and some of us don't, but some of us do. The Congo is the richest land on the face of the earth, and the Europeans been knowing this. Okay, that's why the Congo is one of the most, if not the most, destabilized place in the continent and on Earth, because it's so rich. So they have to keep doing all these destabilizing tactics, so they can call the UN organizations, call in World Health Organizations, all their NGOs and all their little fractions and umbrellas they use, organizations they use to go steal and stuff, right? So think about this, the United Nations been there for 20 years. The situation just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And then you see the U.S., the France, the United Nations blaming Rwanda for being behind the M23 rebels, right? But I'm gonna do a video about that, because there's history behind that. Like, there's long history behind the M23, and they just trying to blame Rwanda to make it seem like, but and all that, and people just go with it. But the thing is, Rwanda's not the one ending up with these resources stolen. Who is it? You guessed it. Yeah, the Europeans. So so all that blaming and stuff, like, and then the Europeans, they're like using the Congolese government. They're being very nice to the Congolese government and putting in all these information and telling the Congolese government what to say. And then they also go use the M23 also. So they play both sides. They play both sides, and that's how they keep destabilizing stuff. And so it took the UN. They've been there for 20 years, and they still don't want to leave, even though the Congolese want them to leave. They've been there for 20 years, and the situations get worse and worse, and the conflict get worse. More people get destabilized, more citizens get killed, and it's just brutal, right? And then they had a problem when the East African forces wanted to come into the Congo. They were saying, "No, you're going to be interfering," and all that. That's what the Europeans were saying. And the East African community, and specifically Kenya, what's it called? They went into the Congo about, I don't know, about a month ago. They were there, yeah, about a month ago, and we're already seeing great progress. Well, really good progress. They've had multiple peace deals and like negotiations in Nairobi in Kenya, right? Behind the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, he's been leading the negotiation, peace talks, and trying to talk and see if we can resolve these conflicts without violence and stuff and more people getting killed. And that's the thing. That's the thing. That's why we say African solutions for African problems. That's what William Ruto also wants to do. Like, have these peace talks. So then, but the thing is, the Europeans, they want to keep having this violence, so then they can keep saying, we need to renew our UN missions, we need to think harder, and so they can just keep, so time can keep going by while they keep abstracting and absorbing and stealing all these resources, like the blood sucking vampires that they are. So that's what they've been on and stuff. That's their MO and stuff. So so they don't mind when it's conflict, when it was just the M23 rebels and the Congolese army, right? Of course, the Congolese army is gonna be more, but the thing about DRC that's so complicated, there's over 100 terrorist groups. Okay, if I think there's 120, but for sure over 100 terrorist groups. M20. This is just one we're talking about. M23. So that's what makes the situation so tricky. These Europeans been fueling these, they've been instigating and fueling these groups, giving them arms, because when they say Rwanda is arming M23, Rwanda doesn't manufacture arms. So where are the guns coming from? Rwanda doesn't manufacture them. So that's just a lie right there. Like this is what they do all over Africa and even in the Middle East and places like that. Give guns to these groups and stuff like that. But yeah, so when it was just the Congolese army, trying to take on, trying to get rid of the M23 and stuff, the Europeans didn't mind that because, okay, it's just one army versus M23, and they're supplying M23 with guns and stuff for exchange for resources, right? They're supplying M23 with guns, and then also remember there's more terrorist groups that they're supplying with guns, so they can, so if those other terrorist groups join and kill citizens, a lot of people won't know if that's a different terrorist group. They could just label that, could just be like that's M23. Or a lot of these terrorist groups can be just one group, but they're just giving them so much names, so they can say there's really more terrorist groups than there really are. This is the kind of snake, and this is the kind of evil and manipulating ways that they play. You know what I mean? This is what they do. So yeah, they don't mind if it's just the Congolese government and M23 battling it out, killing each other, because even if the Congolese government were to get rid of M23, there's other terrorist groups that they can just use, and plus it would take time, right? So while that's going on, the country's really getting destabilized. They're using their UN organization and all those other stuff that they have to steal and decipher resources. But when the East African community wanted to come in, which they did, but before they wanted to, they had a problem because now you got reinforcements. You got Uganda coming, you got Kenya coming, you got Burundi coming, you got you got all these countries coming. So they know for sure that's too much for M23. So now they want to talk. That's how you know there's something sneaky going on. As soon as they knew M23 was outmatched in the battlefield, then they want to say, then they want to start calling the Congolese government and making more plans and saying, no, don't interfere in Congo's internal affairs, even though they're the ones interfering and stuff. Like, but the point is, they were there. The UN has been there for 20 years, and believe me, they're behind the UN. So they've been there. Their strategy that we've been trying, right? Even though we shouldn't be listening to these Europeans, history tells us. But their strategy that we've been trying, which we say, leave the UN there and let's see if the UN can help, right? 20 years, the situation gets worse. The East African community forces, their military comes, a month, the situation is getting better. We got, so with the peace negotiations, the problem is though, the Congolese government did not want the M23 there when the negotiations were happening in Nairobi, Kenya, right? So I said there was over 100 terrorist groups. So there was about, the problem with the peace negotiations, there was about 50 something groups at the peace negotiations. So other groups are gonna feel left out and stuff, and they can be angry, right? So that's the problem. But on the ground I said like Congo is the richest land on earth, so there's a lot of, all over the Congo there's resources, right? But the really hot places for resources that we know of so far, that we know of. The Europeans know of way more for sure, but that we know of is the province North Kivu and South Kivu, like I talked about before, and then in the province North Kivu, the capital city of Goma. So a lot of fighting was going there. A lot of Congolese were getting displaced and moved from there because a lot of the resources are there, right? So that's why M23 was deployed there, and all that kind of stuff. And Kenya and the East African forces have actually made a deal with the M23. They signed a deal with the M23 to leave their bases in Kibumbu, which is, well, not too far from capital city of Goma, where a lot of violence was going on, right? So the M23 has, they've made a deal, and the M23 has left their bases in Kibumbu and another place. So that's great progress. That's way better than what the UN has done in 20 years. Isn't that embarrassing? That's how you know they're there for fighting and destabilizing, just so they can keep deciphering the resources and stealing, right? 20 years, their situation gets worse. 1 month, the M23 agreed to move from their two bases in the in that horrific situation in what's it called, in Goma City, where a lot of fighting was happening. M23 agreed to move from there. But my only problem is, they also, like, their demand is don't move from there, but as long as the East African community puts their gun down too. That's the commands of M23. That's their proposal and stuff. So because I think the thing is, like, they're not fully withdraw. Like, we have to get down to the history of M23, and we got to get down to the full situation so we can solve this. But the good thing that we're trying to do as Africans is all the East African community forces are trying to just talk it out, negotiate peace and stuff instead of violence, because more people will die, more people will be displaced, and it's not gonna stop, right? And then a lot of and then like the European wants the instigations, and it's just gonna get worse between Rwanda and Congo, and there could be a chance for conflict, which we don't want, which the Europeans want. They want that, but we don't want that. So, because they want to keep the Congo, they want to keep all those minerals from the Congo. You know, even President Felix Tshisekedi listens to the Europeans too much, man. Like, he signs deals with them to give away some mines, the rights to mines. Like, that is unacceptable. That's not your mines. That's the Congolese people. You cannot be doing that. Like, that's very disgraceful. But he even listens to the U.S. and the Europeans when they say, "Yeah, just keep blaming Rwanda," even though they know the Europeans have their hand in it. That's the thing. They know the Europeans have the hand in all these resources stealing, but an easy way is to deal away with it is just blame Rwanda, blame Rwanda. That's all you gotta do. And I'm gonna do another video talking about the history of the M23 and some of these groups, specifically M23, because that situation is between Rwanda and Congo. Where is M23 really from, Rwanda or Congo? So we'll do a video on that next time. But yeah, the Europeans wanted it to keep being fighting, but the East African community made it so they can just, so far, let's hope it stays on this path, so we can just peacefully negotiate, and if M23 can get, their demands, if it's fair, and the Congolese government get their demands, M23 can move from all these places, if they, and hopefully no more fighting goes on, and there can be peace in the Congo, and we can deal with the rest of these so-called terrorist groups, right? So then we can function properly. The Congolese people can be in peace, and they can grow their economy, and we can live happily together like that. So, but yeah, it's not totally over yet, because this situation is very, like I said, there's over 100 terrorist groups. The Europeans telling M23 what to do, and they're also in the ear of the Congolese government. So it's very tough. But the good thing is, the East African community forces came and has stopped the fighting so far. Stopped the fighting in those violent cities, like in those violent fights, in those violent killings in the city like Goma, right? They stopped that. But what we also need to do is the United Nations need to leave. The United Nations really need to get out, like, because they're gonna be causing problems too. The Europeans have so many organizations and so much sneaky tactics and strategic tactics that they use to destabilize. It's crazy. This is what they do all day. Plot on how do we keep these countries destabilized so we can keep extracting these resources. It's gross violations, man. Like, we're gonna get to the bottom of it. We just gotta trust each other and not fight. We just gotta not. We gotta learn how to. We just no more people need to be going through war. Like, we've been through war too long. People all over Africa and specifically in the Congo too have been suffering so long just because a couple of white people want to keep stealing. Actually, a lot of white people want to keep stealing the resources, even Chinese too. So I'm glad that the M23 has agreed to move from Kabumbu and the other base near Goma City, right? And those fights have stopped there. But I hope they don't reinsurge and start fighting in other parts of the DRC. So let's just hopefully keep this peace negotiations going on and figure out how we can come to agreement so then there will be no more war in the Congo and we can start moving forward with having a great economy, and putting Africa where it should be. Number one economy in the world, number one military, number one all of that, which it should be. We just got to get rid of all these uh, tactics that the Europeans deploy to destabilize us. Alright, guys, thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe.